Hello, thank you for joining me. So in this video I'd like to show you how to do a little bit more in regard to the sweep cut feature. What I like to do is try to emulate in woodworking what a router bit would do to a door if it follows a path. So what we're going to do is with the sweep cut, just like we did before with our other sweep features, is we're going to identify and create a path and a profile. So let's do the path first. So if you look at the front plane, I'm going to go ahead and draw a profile on the front plane, but we want to be able to draw right on the surface of our countertop or table, and we're going to draw a path from there. So let's just very quickly just put together maybe a corner rectangle. We're going to make sure that we intersect that front plane, which runs right down the middle here, so we can put our path on that front plane when we draw that. Now let's put in some fillets in there. Maybe a 5-inch fillet. We'll put in each one of these corners so we have a nice decent path for it to follow. And then green check mark. So there's our path. We're not going to fully define this. We're going to keep this kind of loose for now, for the sake of demonstration. And so we're going to keep it as such. So our path, our sketch 11 is going to be our path. We're going to call that path 2 because we already have a sketch called path. It's probably not going to like that. And then we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. And on our front plane, we're going to draw our profile. So let's go ahead and go normal to that front plane before we start drawing so we can see what we're doing. Let's go normal to it a second time so we can kind of draw from the back here so we can actually see the profile of the table. Yeah, let's take our rail body and kind of hide that for now so we don't have that in the way. So I'm going to bend that just a little bit. We're should still be on our front plane, so let's go to sketch. Nope, not on the front plane anymore. Let's go ahead and reselect that. And let's start drawing some geometry. Now we know that the thickness, or I know that the thickness of the tabletop is 1 3/4 of an inch. So let's go ahead and make our profile about an inch. So let's put a dimension on this, so we'll make that about an inch. Actually, let's make that about 1.5 inches. Alright, let's make it 2 inches. What I want to do is be able to put a center line in the middle of this. And the center line is going to signify where the top of the tool bit is going to be, and which is going to be coplanar with the top of our tabletop or our counter. And everything below that is going to be what it's going to cut. So we want to have an inch cut inside of that sweep feature, that sweep cut, and everything else on top is going to go beyond that. So you need to make sure if you do a bit like this, if you do a cut like this, that you do have a portion of your cut bit that represents the profile of your router above where the material is. It's got to be above the material. So you're going to be cutting out a little bit more than just the door. You're going to be cutting out some of the air that's above that, if that makes sense. It helps it resolve better because sometimes it may not resolve very well at all. So we can make that short a little bit. And let's take this. Let's take all these lines and we're going to make these construction lines. So go over here to the construction line thing, and everything we draw in after this is going to involve arcs and lines, and these are going to be actually solid lines so we can actually see what we're doing. So everything that's going to be solid is going to be resolved in a 3D feature, but everything that's in the background, everything that's going to be a center line will not be. So we'll do a series of just random circles in here, and maybe the last one we'll do a straight line, perhaps at an angle, and then we'll finish this up by getting rid of that pony line by having some closed geometry in there. Okay, let's go ahead and put a dimension on this just to make sure it kind of stays together and make that 1 inch. And now we're going to take that router bit, that profile which represents a router bit, and move that into our model a little bit. The way you want to do this, we're going to use this as a point that we're going to use to pierce that path. Remember us doing that in the previous film? We're going to make sure we pierce it on this line. So if we click on that point, in that line, we're going to go to pierce, and should move the whole thing over here. So you notice that some of this actually became fully defined because the path is fully defined. That line, that horizontal line, and this vertical line, and this partial horizontal line also become fully defined. What's not fully defined in these are angles and the radiuses of the arcs that we put in. We're going to keep that loose by now. And if you do remember that this our path really isn't fully defined, but this sketch is fully defined to that path, whereas that path is not fully defined to the model so far. So there's a little bit of relative relations in there that you need to be aware of. So Now we have our path. Now we have our profile. Let's go ahead and rename that. We're going to call that profile 2. 2 independent sketches. Let's go to features, swap cut. So now it's asking for a profile, which is going to be that guy, a path, which is going to be this guy. And now it's going to cut it all the way around. Green check mark. And it's really, really a deep cut. You can probably make modifications to that to make that a little bit less dramatic, or maybe put some fillets in there to do that. But yeah, that's kind of the way it turns out. Let's go ahead and make some modifications to our profile cut and see if we can make that a little bit cleaner. So instead of making that 1 inch, let's make that 2 inches. We'll make it a lot wider. And let's put a diagonal cut maybe from that point to that point and trim out the other items that we don't need, which is going to be these two. And then let's go ahead and rebuild. Now that looks a little bit better. Still kind of a deep cut compared to what the countertop's going to be, or if this were a door, that would be something you could do. But it does demonstrate pretty well some of the options you have in regard to doing a sweep cut with something that would resemble and represent a router bit. So thank you for joining me. Join me for other films.